Okay, so on in this in your auto text handbook, um, and they starts talking about systems of pay, and it's interesting in the automotive world because um, many people don't understand how technicians are paid, and some technicians don't understand until they get into it. Now, probably um, one of the most common, and if you take it like overall technicians, like in totality, like all the technician shops, whether they be dealerships, small shops, whether they be franchises or car lots. If you take them in totality, probably the most common rate of pay is or system of pay is probably going to be just simply hourly. Okay, because there's um, that's probably the simplest way, um, and that's today, right? So hourly is pretty easy to understand. Basically, you get to your work in the morning. You either punch in or you simply or you simply show up. I you show up and then you get paid an hourly salary, whatever your salary might be, and that's typically negotiable by the shop, or sometimes they have like a like a ladder, and I'll talk about that later about rates of pay and as a ladder and everything. But one of the things about a being a technician in California, anyways, in California, technicians, if they are required to have their own tools, if the technician is required to have their own tools, they actually got to get paid at least double the minimum wage of whatever city county they work in. And many people are not aware of that. So let's just say that, for example, and I'm not even sure what let's just say in let's say in the city of let's just say San Francisco, and I'm just gonna Google San Francisco, um, San Francisco minimum wage. And so the San Francisco minimum wage right now is 1807. Okay. And that started on July 1st, 2024. So let's say if you're a technician and your job requires you to have your own tools, then you're going to need you're going to get you will be paid, should be paid at least double the minimum wage. So 1807 times two is what, that's 30 3614, is that correct? I believe so. Yeah, 3614 would be the minimum. And some shops, some organizations can be sneaky about this. They might say, well, we'll provide our own tools, but if you want to bring your own, you're welcome to. And that's sometimes a loophole, but they really can't do that. Even if they if you take your tools to your shop and use them, technically you should get paid the double minimum wage. Um, so the only way they can get around that is if they say no, you cannot bring your tools here. Okay. Or if you never make a fuss about it. But so that's one of the things about about the pay system. And so that's just your hourly pay, compared to some shops. Now, um depending on where you work, that might not be the way that it works. Some shops will actually be commission based, and commission based basically means like you get a percentage of how much you you produce. Okay. Or a percentage of parts. So for example, I worked in a shop for a friend of mine. The first time I worked outside of a dealership, I worked at a shop for a friend of mine. And um and he said, what do you think it would cost, for you to for you to work for me? And I said, you know what, if you give me 40% of the labor that I produce, and 25% of the parts that I sell, then and I'm talking about like the net profit, then I will work for you. Now that can be a little complicated. That can be a little complicated because you figure if it's 40% of the labor, right? And then you have to figure 25% of the parts net. So it starts being a little bit of a hassle for the bookkeeper, right? For the bookkeeper has to figure out, um, the labor is not that bad. The labor you can figure out, just look at the labor, get 40% of the labor, that's it. But then when you start looking at the parts, you have to figure out, okay, what parts were sold by me, by the technician, and then second, what was the net cost of the parts or the net profit, and then give me 25% of that. So that can be a little bit confusing. So that's called commission based. That's called commission based. In other words, you're getting a percentage of that of the pay. All right. Then there's other shops that'll pay, not too many, but some shops will pay a straight salary. So a straight salary is kind of like what I get paid now as a professor. As a professor, they give me a certain amount of money a year, right? They say, okay, we're going to give you so much money for the year. We're just going to cut it up into 10 payments. So they give me a certain amount of money per year. They cut it up into 10 payments and they pay me for 10 months. So technically, I don't get paid for 2 months, right? But I do. They just give it to me. They just give it to me early. I just have to be smart and save some of that money for the 2 months that I technically don't get paid. Okay, but that's called a straight salary. Okay, so far we talked about hourly, we talked about commission, we talked about straight salary. Okay, any questions or comments about that, Joshua or Jonathan? Okay. Okay, if there's not, I'll go on. Okay.
Can you
So,
hear me?
yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you, Jonathan. Okay. So, the next,
So I'm sorry,
go ahead.
I joined you guys a little bit late. I know you start everything at 5:30. What is it about that you're talking, teacher? I
So
mean, if you give me a
we're
little
talking about
refresh.
we're talking about rates of pay, systems of pay, how technicians get paid. So I do this. I do part of this. I do as a recording for one of my other classes, Jonathan. But again, you're welcome to sit in, and if you have questions, I can pause the recording and I can address them. Do you have questions for me right now?
Not right now, maybe in a few minutes, but that's
Okay,
fine.
all
Thank
right.
you, teacher. Thank you.
Okay, so okay, so then the next system I'm going to talk about is the one that I'm most familiar with, and the system that many big shops incorporate, and that's called a flat rate system. Okay, a flat rate system. So a flat rate system, you get paid. The way to think about a flat rate system is that a flat rate system is you get paid for the work that you do. Okay, you get paid for the work that you do, and so in order to work at a flat rate system, so what ends up happening with that is that you take on a job. Let's say a vehicle comes in, and you get paid, like, say in my profession, I had to diagnose the vehicle first of all, right? So I had to diagnose the vehicle. So they typically would give me 1 hour to diagnose the vehicle, right? 1 hour. If it was very complicated, or if there was other things I had to do besides just a regular diagnosis, they'd give me a little bit more time. But let's just say that they gave me 1 hour to diagnose the vehicle, and let's say the vehicle came in and it would not start, and then I diagnosed the vehicle and I figured out it needed a fuel pump. Okay, okay, so far I got 1 hour of labor, and then and then I'm going to what's called upsell the fuel pump, right? So I'm gonna go and to the parts counter. I'm gonna get the prices for the fuel pump, all of this other things, and then I'm gonna submit it. But one thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look up the labor rate. How many hours, or how much time does it pay to replace a fuel pump? So I'm gonna try to see if I can show you guys how that is done, how you look it up, and I might end up stumbling a little bit. So for really quick, I'm gonna pause the recording. Okay. Okay. So as you were asking, what would be okay? So a shop can charge whatever they want per hour. Okay, but keep in mind they say they cannot charge the customer more than those 18.7 hours. Okay, so let's say a typical shop will charge over $200 an hour. Okay, in San Francisco, the Bay Area, some shops are up to $300 an hour. Okay, so um, if you do the math, you can figure that 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 18.7, right? So it's 18.7 hours, 18.7, and I'm going to share my screen again. That way, you guys can see the flat rate. Okay, so you guys should be seeing the flat rate here, the 18.7 hours that I looked up, 18.7, and I'm just gonna go in the middle. I'm gonna go times 250. Okay. So the labor, just the labor to replace that fuel pump is gonna be $4,000. Could you imagine? Holy crap. Okay. Now typically they'll pay a technician. Typically in San Francisco, technicians are getting paid between um, you know on the lower end, on the lower spectrum, technicians are getting paid about $40 to $50 an hour. Some higher, some lower, some a little bit lower, but typically at least 40 to 50. So let's just say 45. So 18.7 times 45.00 equals $841. So they're gonna pay me $841 to change that fuel pump plus the 1 hour that it took me to diagnose it, right? So that add another $50 to that. So that's $891.50. Okay, so that's how flat rate works. Okay, that's how flat rate works. And it's good for technicians that are fast. It's good for technicians that are fast, for technicians that are knowledgeable, and especially if say I work at a Chevrolet dealership, right? Say I work at a Chevrolet dealership and I've done several of these fuel pumps. Well, then I'm going to be very quick at it. I'm going to probably be able to beat the flat rate. I'm probably going to be able to change that fuel pump instead of 18 hours. I'm going to probably be able to do it in about maybe 14 or 15 hours, right? I still get paid 18.7. It doesn't matter. Okay. It doesn't matter. And if I'm not good at it and I make a mistake or whatever, uh and I end up taking 20 hours to do it, well, then guess what? I still only get paid 18.7 hours. Okay. So that's the way the flat rate works. Okay. As a technician, I worked most of my career in that form of pay, flat rate. And as a matter of fact, I worked flat rate, and in some cases, I got flat rate plus commission. So in other words, I would get my flat rate plus I get an extra money if for example, if during a quarter, which is 3 months, every 3 months, if no cars came back, right? Like if no cars came back, in other words, I made no mistakes, zero mistakes, they would give me a bonus. They give me a bonus of about 5% of my net pay is what they would give me, right? And I was pretty good, so I usually got that bonus, right? So that's kind of commission. I also worked at places that gave me a commission besides my flat rate. They gave me a commission on parts that I would sell. So sometimes you get a combination of both. Okay, so you guys kind of understand the way that the flat rate system works. Um, it's uh it's not real difficult. Just some people don't like it. Some people don't like it because they're not fast, right? They're not very fast, and they take too long, and they don't make a lot of decent money, right? It's not a good idea to work flat rate if you work in a shop that works like on all kinds of vehicles. Like if you work on Hondas, Nissans, General Motors, Ford, Chrysler, and whatever, you work on anything that comes in, it's hard to make money on that because you're not familiar with the systems. It's best to work on a flat rate system if you're working on vehicles that you're familiar with on over and over again. So most, excuse me, most independent shops do not do the flat rate system. Most independent shops will pay hourly or hourly plus commission, things like that. Okay. Any questions about that?
Nope. You do.
Um, and so it talks about it also talks about how flat rate, how we again, kind of like what I mentioned, if you're very fast, or if you like I would do, I would get to work early and try to knock out a couple of jobs early, so that by lunchtime I wanted to have like at least 4 or 5 hours already done. That way, I would make my day. Other things is that you can once you get good at it, you can become very fast. You find tricks. You like there it might be something like the first time that you take that gas tank off, maybe you drop the whole axle and you do a bunch of extra work, right? But then the next time you realize, you know what, I didn't have to actually do that. I could have done that without having to remove the axle. Maybe I could have just done it by taking the gas tank and not even taking the gas tank all the way out of the vehicle, things like that. So you figure out ways to, as it says in the book, manipulate the system, right? Ways to manipulate the system, again, by taking shortcuts and doing things like that. The other form of pay that they talk about is a team system. I have never ever worked on a team system. A team system is basically where you where you work in a group, okay? Where you work in a group. The way a team system can work, the way a team system can work, for example, is let's say that there is like a mechanic or technician that has a lot of experience, okay, and then he might have like a couple of helpers, right, to help him with the work, even though he's like their kind of like their immediate supervisor, okay. And so what might happen is that together they all get credit for the flat rate hours, but they only get paid like a certain amount of the flat rate. They don't get paid the same amount that he does. Okay, so that's called a team system. It's not real common. It's not real common. I have seen shops that do that. But that's the only other kind of system that I can think of as far as rate of pay. Um, and then the last thing is that if you do start to work in the automotive industry, you need to understand the type of pay that the shop offers, and if it's going to work for you, right? Because if you're just starting out in the automotive world and they want to pay you flat rate, it's probably not a good idea, because you're probably not going to be that experienced. You're probably not going to have all the sophisticated tools that you need, and you might not be making the money that you need, right? Or the money
I
that
share something.
yeah, give me 1 second. So you might not be making the amount of money that's adequate for you. So starting out as a technician, probably the flat rate system is not the best. Also, yeah, again, like I mentioned, if you're working in a shop that works on many different kinds of vehicles, and you're not familiar with them, sometimes you have to like relearn the system as on the spot. Again, the flat rate system is probably not the best bet for you. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Um, Speaking about working hourly, teacher,
Mhm,
I want to share this. I have a friend of mine. He's working. He said he's been working a lot of cars,
mhm.
and he's getting paid $20 an hour. He feel like he's being kind of ripped off. I said, man, why don't you try to get try to go to a different place where they can value what you know and what you do, so you don't keep
So let me ask you this:
being ripped off, you know?
is he getting
So
paid?
he,
Is he getting paid legally, like a check and everything?
no,
Or-
he's getting paid on the under the table.
Yeah. So
And
so
he
so
just,
so yeah. So that that just blows everything out of proportion because as I was mentioning earlier, in the state of California, if you use your own tools to work in a shop, you
which
have
is
to
which
you
he's
have to,
doing,
excuse me?
which is that's the case for him, you know,
It is or it's not?
which is that's the case. He's been using his own tools. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So in California, you have to get paid double the minimum wage automatically. And double the minimum wage is I think I just figured it out. It was 36.14 an hour is double the minimum wage. So that's the whole thing about not working legally, right? You're gonna get ripped off. Um the only time that I have worked illegally, I've worked and I'll admit it. I'm not, I'm
You're
not shy
feeding
about what I've done. One time I was on the shop that I worked at. It filed bankruptcy. So I was on unemployment. One of the few times in my life I was in unemployment, and one of my friends asked me to go smog cars for him, right? Because I was a smog technician, and he said, "I'll pay you $25 for every smog that you do," right? And
uh,
and I said, okay, but it'll have to be cash. It'll have to be cash money because I'm on unemployment right now. And he said, okay. Well, that turned out pretty good for me for a little while because I was smogging about 3 cars an hour. So if you figure that out, 3 cars an hour, right? That's $75. I was getting paid 75 bucks an hour cash, you know.
per car
Huh?
for each vehicle.
No. 20, yeah, I was getting paid $25 for each vehicle, but
There you go.
but
Yeah.
I was able to smog like 3 cars an hour, right? So you figure, then that I was making about on average, $50 to $75 an hour,
Right.
and all under the table. But of course, once I started working legitimately again, back at a dealership, then I quit that, and of course I quit my unemployment. But other than that, the reason they're taking advantage of your friend is because they're paying him under the table. That's the whole reason. Because
And
they
he
because
and
they
he
can't.
just and he just did a swap of a Lincoln car engine, you know.
uh,
Just swap an
yeah. How come he doesn't go work
engine, yeah, an engine for a Lincoln, you know.
yeah,
He just swap an engine.
how come he doesn't go
I
work
said, well, I said, well, I think, but
no, I'm just wondering, why doesn't he go work at a legitimate shop?
I think he doesn't have legal paper. That's all
Oh,
it is.
okay, okay,
That's all
okay.
it is.
Yeah,
He
they
got
take
the
advantage.
knowledge. He got
They,
the knowledge, but it's just he's afraid to go ask for work.
yeah,
Well, it's undocumented. That's
they
but
take advantage of people like that. So
yeah,
that's unfortunate. Okay.
fortunate.
Okay, so that's all I'm going to talk about today as far as the lecture is concerned. So I'm going to stop the recording for now. I'm going to stop the share,
Beautiful.
and then I'm also going to stop the recording.